ولا يوضح. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد نصركم الله ببدر وأنتم أذلة فاتقوا الله لعلكم تشكرون. Respected brothers and elders, mothers and sisters in Islam, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us in the company of the righteous in this world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise us amongst the righteous on the day of Qiyamah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fill our lives with mercy and rahmah, as all of us are in the need of the rahmah and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This ayat of the Quran that I recited in front of you is from Surah Ali Imran, which is the third surah in the order of recitation. And this is the fourth juz, the fourth sipara, and the ayat of the Quran is verse number 123. This very particular ayat of the Quran, prior to this and then few ayats after this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us or mentioning to us the story of the day of Badr. And just to give you an overview of Badr and then get to this ayat of the Quran, the battle of Badr took place in the month of Ramadan. It was the 16th of Ramadan when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam reached Badr. And the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba began the battle of Badr on the morning of the 17th. And I'll come to the details in just a few minutes. Amongst the two things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defines as Al-Furqan. The word Al-Furqan in Arabic means something that differentiates between truth and false, haqq and batil, right and wrong. Amongst one of the things is the Quran itself. There is an entire surah of the Quran known as Surah Al-Furqan, because Quran itself differentiates between haqq and batil, right and wrong, correct and which is not right. And another thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to in the Quran as Furqan, Yawm al-Furqan, is the day of Badr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the day of Badr as the day of differentiation of haqq and batil, right and wrong. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows so much emphasis. And that's why the 313, and there's a long story and subhanAllah, the lack of time, but there's a story from amongst the stories of Sahaba that near the time of Fateh Makkah, and I'm going much further in Tariq just to give us the understanding. Badr took place in the second year of migration when Rasulullah and Sahaba moved to Medina. The victory of Makkah, which is known as Fateh Makkah, took place around the 8th year of migration, 6 years after Badr. So around Fateh Makkah, when the Nabi of Allah and the Sahaba were secretly, or I wouldn't say secretly, but privately sitting down and discussing their journey towards Makkah, that no one should know that they're going to enter Makkah victorious, there was a Sahabi who wrote a letter to the leadership of Quraysh, informing them of the private/secret plan of the Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ entering Makkah. Meaning he disclosed the information which was discreet, not known to anyone. And he sent this information to the people of Makkah in the hands of few individuals. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that this information is being sent there. You need to intercept and stop it. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent Ali radiallahu anhu and few Sahaba, and they got hold of a woman. She had braids, and within her braids she had hidden that very secret message. And the message was brought back, and the Sahabi was brought. And the Sahaba took out their swords and they said he informed of the secret of the Prophet ﷺ to the Quraysh. And when the Nabi of Allah ﷺ heard the story of Sahabi, he said, "O Nabi of Allah ﷺ, all of you have family members that have protection in Makkah. I have my children, I have my family there, they have no protection. I thought this may give them the protection." Long story short, there's a lot to discuss, but the Nabi of Allah ﷺ, after this, told the Sahaba, do not say anything to him. He is from amongst the people of Badr, and Allah has already forgiven him. Meaning he's from amongst the 313 that Allah has promised the maghfirah in the Quran, and Allah has already mentioned. So I'm just showing you the excellence of the people who were present in Badr. And that's why Jibreel alayhi salam said, just like the excellence of the Sahaba who attended Badr, the angels who had partaken in Badr, they also had the excellence amongst the other angels as well, those who participated in Badr as well. So very, very quick rundown. It was the morning of the 16th of Ramadan. It was Thursday where Rasulullah ﷺ and the Sahaba reached Badr. Badr is not very far away from Medina. It's closer to Medina than Mecca itself. The Nabi of Allah ﷺ reached subhanAllah, Badr. According to many traditions, there were 313 individuals, including Rasulullah ﷺ. Some of the riwayats and traditions have mentioned 317, 319. All of these numbers have been there. They reached there a day before the Battle of Badr. Nabi of Allah ﷺ set a spot, and he was getting the Sahaba ready in the forces of three: right wing, left wing, and right in the middle. When he was setting up the camps, a Sahabi known as Hubayb radiallahu anhu came and he said, Ya Rasulullah ﷺ, I'm shy, but can I ask you something very humble? He said, sure. He said, Ya Rasulullah ﷺ, this particular spot that you chose, and look at the adab of Sahaba, the ilm of Sahaba, the wisdom of Sahaba, and the love of Sahaba for the Prophet ﷺ. So Ya Rasulullah, this particular spot that you chose, is this wahi? Is this revelation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you? Or is it your own particular choice? So the Nabi of Allah said, no, it's not wahi. It's something that I felt that we can choose. He said, Ya Nabi Allah, if I may suggest humbly, that if we don't stay here and we move our location to this place, where not only that we are on a higher ground, but the battle of Badr, the well of Badr, which is the access of water, comes under our control. That if the Quraysh were to face us, they don't have direct access to water. And we have control over the water. And we are on a higher place. And if it begins to rain, as I see that the rain may come, then the land will remain strong. It will not become muddy for us. It will be a good access, and we'll have control of the water as well. Meaning this was the mashwar. And Rasulullah said, of course we will do this. And according to some riwayah and tradition, Jibreel alayhi salam came and he seconded the opinion of Hubayb radiallahu anhu. And they move forward, which shows the humility of Rasulullah ﷺ and mashwara, mushawara, that when you put your heart to something, Allah opens the ways for you. Then of course Rasulullah ﷺ stood there on the morning of the 17th of Ramadan. It was Friday morning, Jum'ah morning. The Nabi of Allah ﷺ began to line the Sahaba. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu mentioned, and I'll conclude with this. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu mentions that I was with Rasulullah ﷺ, that he began to line the Sahaba, 313. Knowing that a large army of more than 1,000 men and women, laden completely with all the force and weapons, were coming to, na'udhu billah, completely finish Muslims in Islam. At this moment, Rasulullah ﷺ, when he lined up the Sahaba, he picked up his hands and he made dua. There were three ways that Rasulullah ﷺ made dua. Number one way of making dua was normal message, where Rasulullah ﷺ would keep the palms towards himself, towards the sky, and he would make dua. This is one way that the Nabi of Allah, this is the most common way of making dua of Rasulullah ﷺ, that he would keep his hands and palms up and he would make dua facing his chest. That's number one. The second way of making dua from the hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ was pointing of the finger. He would make dua sometimes like this. And that was usually for dhikr. Astaghfirullah, 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 subhanallah, subhanallah, Allahu Akbar. This is how he would make dhikr. This is also proven from the hadith. By the pointing of the finger of Rasulullah ﷺ, he would make a dua. He would do dhikr. And the third was, which had two aspects of it, that the Nabi of Allah ﷺ would place his two hands like this towards the sky, and he would keep his hands down and make dua. But there's only two times in his life that not only did he raise his hands to the sky, but he raised his head to the sky as well. Two times that he raised both his hands and his head to the sky. One was the day of Arafah, and one was the day of Badr. That he raised both of his hands to the sky, pointing towards the inside like this, and then he also raised his head towards the sky as well, the Nabi of Allah. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said it was the morning of the 17th of Ramadan, Jum'ah, while lining up 313 Sahaba, I saw the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam held his hands towards the sky while his face was also facing the sky, and he was crying and he was saying that, "Oh Allah, I have brought a group of small Muslims, small amounts of Muslims, who have nothing to shroud and cover themselves, and they have nothing to protect themselves, no shoes, no clothing, no weapons. And Allah, if they do not remain on the face of this earth, there will be no one to say your name till the day of Qiyamah." Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said Rasulullah was wearing two garments, the lower garment and the upper garment. When he would raise his hands, his upper garment would fall to the ground, meaning it wasn't a sewn shirt. That's like ihram, like a shirt. He was wearing an upper garment. So whenever he would raise his hands, his upper garment would fall down. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said, I would go and I would grab the upper garment and I would wrap him around and I would cover him. And then he would raise his hands and it would fall down again. Till a time came that I, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said, went and I grabbed him from the back and I hugged him. And I said, "Enough, Ya Rasulullah. You have asked Allah for so much. You have asked Allah for so much. This is enough that you have asked Allah." Because he said, I couldn't take it no more. The Rasulullah kept on crying, and he says, the Nabi of Allah still kept on praying till he placed his hands down. And there was a smile on his face. And the Nabi of Allah said, "I just saw Jibreel alayhi salam on his angel, on his horse, wearing a turban amongst the army of the believers." He said, "I saw Jibreel with my own eyes on the battlefield of Badr, helping the believers." And it wasn't only Jibreel, but it was the angels that came for the help of the believers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَلَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ. Indeed, it was the nusra and the help of Allah that came upon you on the day of Badr. وَأَنْتُمْ أَذِلَّةٌ. And vastly you were outnumbered, or vastly you were extremely weak, where you had no strength in numbers to compete amongst them. But then the Quran says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهِ. Have the fear of Allah, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that you can become grateful. Two things in 3 ayats afterwards, I can't go to the details of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا. Sabr and taqwa. Contentment and the taqwa and the fear of Allah will make ways in ways that we cannot even imagine. Places where we see that there is no way out. The fear of Allah, the consciousness of Allah, and trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are two means to get the nusrat of Allah. The day of Badr is one of the greatest reminders that when we may see situations which are extremely difficult, we may see no results, but trust Allah, don't give up, and have the fear and the consciousness of Allah in your life. Allah will make ways for us. This is again Surah number 3, Juz number 4, Sipara 4, verse number 123, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions His nusra and His help for the believers on the day of Badr. May Allah send His nusra and help towards all of us, especially our brothers and sisters in Gaza. May Allah protect them and save them and strengthen them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all of them, inshallah, and all of us as an ummah. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta.